Hey and welcome to Discart. Today I got a few more ideas on how you can display your Game Boy cartridges in your game room or game collection. This is part 5. Let's take a look. So the first idea I have for displaying Game Boy games comes from a company called TangentTek on Etsy. I saw that TangentTek had an interesting idea for their stand and I jumped at the chance to check it out. Their stand is completely made out of wood and it appears that they have painted the wood black, but it has several different slots in it so you can put your Game Boy games in there and stand them upright. The 5 different slots that are on here have been designed to be wide enough so that your Game Boy game will lean back a slight amount. And this allows it to show your Game Boy games and the artwork that's on them, and it just looks really cool sitting on the shelf. Altogether, this holds 10 different Game Boy games, and I have noticed the slot is wide enough for other handheld games as well. The biggest problem you'd run into if you were going to use another handheld game in this stand is that maybe that slot is not wide enough for 2 of those games, so you'd have to do a little finagling to make it work properly. One of the other benefits of this is it is a tray style, so this is going to be a low-lying stand for your game collection. You'll be able to stand up things behind it and it will work in that way. Also, if you have a little bit of the upper portion of your shelf and you have things at the bottom, you can always stand this on top of other items and really take up your entire shelf space that way. Overall, I think it's a pretty high quality item. I think it looks awesome in any game room and it's certainly worth looking into. Now, like the last stand, this next stand is also another tray style stand, which allows it to fit into smaller spaces. But unlike the last one, this one is very small and will fit into some very small spaces in your game collection and take up very little space for more games. Retro Fools is the company that makes this little tray stand. It holds 12 different cartridges and packs them all into a very small, tight area. Now, this stand has no frills or anything extra with it. It's a pretty simple idea. It is a tray for your Game Boy games. You can pack them in there and fit them into a small space in your collection and not have to take up a ton of space with a display. Also, the stand itself doesn't stand out, and that puts the games on display versus the stand, so that's pretty cool. Now, this stand is 3D printed, so you can see some slight etching and lines in the bottom of it, but rest assured you're going to be putting your cartridges in there anyway, and all of that stuff's going to be covered up by them. Personally, with my game collection, I like to have a lot of options when it comes to displaying things, and this will allow me to pack a lot of games into a smaller space, while other stands might take up more space but really show off more of that front artwork. So it's really all going to come down to you and what your aesthetic is for your game collection, but I think this might be a great idea for a collection that maybe has less space in it. And this way you can still display your games and store your games, but still not take up all of that room. One of my favorite kind of displays is a tiered display. And all that means is it's like a bunch of stairs where each game's sitting on a different stair. And that allows the game art to show in the front of your display and really show off those cartridges in your game collection and know which game you're going to be picking out. A company called Fancytastic Crafts on Etsy makes this tiered display. Their display will fit 10 different cartridges, and again, it's going to fit into a very small space. This is a really cool idea to show off that artwork on your cartridges, but also pack those games into a smaller area. This is simply a great tiered stand for your Game Boy games, and I love seeing that artwork. I love being able to just grab a game and knowing which game I'm gonna grab off the shelf. So I really like this idea. Another thing I like about this is I can use it as an accessory to a shelf. I can have Amiibo there and some other items and then put this on a 45-degree on the corner, and it looks like it belongs there as opposed to it taking up the entire shelf space and having it completely be dedicated to Game Boy games. They also added the word Nintendo to the backside of this, and I really like those little touches. When a maker goes up and beyond and does that, it really shows that they care about what they're making. But overall, for a 3D printed item, this looks pretty awesome. You can tell they put a lot of time and effort into designing it, as well as making sure that their prints come out the right way. So when you're looking at a 3D printing company, this is certainly something you want to look for. I definitely recommend them. One type of stand that I will always use in my collection is an individual cart stand. I've used a lot of them from Rose Colored Gaming and other companies to hold single individual carts on my shelf. Retro Fools also came out with their own individual cart stand, and theirs actually takes the form of an actual Game Boy. Now, this is a relatively simple stand. The back side of it does look like a Game Boy, and the front does have 2 prongs that will hold your game in place. Works really good for Game Boy games. I've personally been using them for some of the larger Game Boy games like Pokemon Pinball or Little Mermaid Pinball. These are really large games, and I think this is a really cool way to display those. But really the biggest thing that grabbed me about these is the backside looking like a Game Boy. And that's kind of silly knowing that your cartridge is going to cover that up. So it's going to be up to you whether or not you think that's cool enough to have on your shelf or whether it's worth it. But new and interesting ideas always grab me, so this was definitely a shoo-in for my collection, and I definitely recommend checking them out to see what other new ideas they have on their site. And the last idea today, and one that I've talked about previously in another video, comes from DNA Dimension Designs, and they made a absolutely beautiful display for Game Boy games. DNA Dimension Designs has a site where they make a bunch of signs and other display ideas and stands for NES carts, but this Game Boy display really takes the cake of everything that I've seen from them. Their stand is completely made out of wood and is also a tiered display. Their tier is a little bit shallower than a lot of other tiers that I've seen out there, so this is going to be a more low-lying display. You'll be able to fit 16 different cartridges on this stand, and they will just look awesome sitting on this thing. I'm not sure what it is, maybe it's the wood choice that they picked, but the wood grain on this looks absolutely beautiful. They did a great job of sealing this, and it really has a nice shine to it, but it's not too shiny. I really like this idea, and I think it's beautiful. But the things that really separate this from something that somebody just made in their wood shop is the little details. Things like having the word Game Boy on the front of it, that's a huge deal, and they're also using the proper font, and that really hits me in the nostalgia, and I really love that. Another little detail that they added to this display stand is on the underside they added these small little feet. And these little feet are little rubbery feet, and that makes it so they're not going to damage anything that they're sitting on, raises it up just off the ground so it's not scraping against your shelving and making a mess of that. But DNA Dimension Designs has certainly never let me down on any of the projects that they have made for me. I think they do an awesome job with creating things, especially out of wood, out of material that's going to last a very long time. They're definitely well worth looking into. So thanks for coming and checking out Discard today. If you have any other ideas on how to display Game Boy games in your game room or game collection, please let me know in the comments below. I am always looking for more ideas. If you're looking for more ideas, I have an entire playlist dedicated to display ideas. Feel free to go and check that out. If you want to help out Discard past a subscription, please check out patreon.com/discard and check out all the awesome stuff you can get for $2 a month. If you like this video, please leave a like. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. But otherwise, have a great day and collect what you love.